Coast Fire and Rescue District to order. It is Thursday, May 15th, 2025, and it is 4:02 p.m. Public meeting of the Budget Committee of the Central Coast Fire and Rescue District, Lincoln County, State of Oregon, to discuss the budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026 will be held at 125 Alsea Highway, Waldport, Oregon 97394. The meeting will take place on the 15th day of May at 4 o'clock in the Central Coast Fire and Rescue Training Room. The purpose of the meeting is to receive the budget message and to receive comments from the public on the budget. So, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on the agenda we have the introduction of Budget Committee members.
Sue's throwing things in over there.
Just a microphone.
Technology, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, you have.
I'm sinking. My chair. Okay, so we have the introduction of Budget Committee members. I guess we can just go around the table.
Yeah, I forgot to print that page out.
Okay.
I really is what's here.
Yeah. Louise, you want to start?
Louise Soliday from Tidewater.
Susan Swander from Waldport.
Steve Barham, Waldport. Joe Vandehay, Waldport.
Beth Cattleman, Waldport.
Okay, and then,
Rick Booth, board member.
and Rita Ackerman, Board Chair.
John McCullough, Vice Chair. Greg Dunn, Board Chair, or Board Member.
Musical chairs.
Yeah.
Okay, we have the election of chairperson.
I elect Steve, or nominate Steve Barnett.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to elect Steve Barham. Any other nominations? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Steve?
That's why I said it. Jamie does a lot. It's not-
It's your meeting.
Okay, presentation of the budget.
Okay, so this year we have a little bit of a different presentation because next Tuesday, the election will determine essentially which direction the district's going to have to go with which budget. So you're actually going to get presented two budgets today, and the conclusion for the presentation is going to be to accept the budget based off of the results of the levy with next Tuesday's results that come out, as long as the results are wide enough to be able to make a determination, if that makes sense. If they're close, that might force a recall, or not recall, a recount. Then obviously we might have to wait a little longer to be able to determine which budget's going to go forward based off of whether or not the election was successful or unsuccessful. So that being said, if you look at the packets you have in front of you, you can disregard.
Looks like they're duplicate.
Draft A. So just take that out of your packet and disregard it. That was initially thrown in, but since then, the board of directors and myself have come up with the final plan for the unsuccessful passing of the levy, which is draft B. So we're going to start with the optimistic presentation, which is the levy is successful. So that one just says draft. It doesn't have a letter under it. And you'll notice one of the easiest distinguishing factors is that on line number 2 of the resources page, the operational levy is at $1.87 versus $1.27. Is everybody on the right packet with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. So going through the resource page, our permanent rate at 82 cents per thousand is going to bring in about 392,000, almost 393,000. The $1.87 levy would bring in $895, and then our 35% ops levy brings in about 167. We're estimating roughly 118 in all accounts at the end. That's always subject to change. You never know how much we're gonna have to spend between now and the end of June. So, but that's an estimation. Same thing with previously levied taxes. Brett keeps track of that. Those come in changes. The 450 is a bridge note. The lease income is the Pacific West ambulance lease that they pay us on a monthly basis, so that number's hard set. Sale of surplus, I just put $1 as a placeholder. Currently, we do not have any surplus left to sell. We have gotten rid of everything that is outdated or no longer needed. So at this point, the district is sitting on current equipment and not holding on to relics of the past. Same thing with our SAFER grant and AFG grant and other grants, because we never know what's gonna come available to us. We put $1 in there as placeholders, essentially. We'll have to do amendments to the budget if we get certain grants. For instance, I have a grant for AFG. There are 2 grants currently filed with AFG. One is for almost $900,000 for a new Type 1 engine for the district. The other is much smaller for breathing compressor and a testing station for our breathing air systems. So if we get those, we'll have to amend those later when we get them. We don't usually find out about those till September, so there's no way to know that we're even gonna have those or not. Configuration is set at 32,000 instead of the typical 5,000, because we know we have money coming in from California Palisades, so that 32,000 is essentially our profit. That's coming in after all reimbursements are taken care of.
Not me. I was just reminding me to turn mine down.
Okay, got it. EF recovery is our billing, our highway billing for motor vehicle accidents when we deal with people who do not live here and do not contribute to the tax base. And then the interest is the interest from our accounts, which usually get from Brett. So those bring us all together to a total of 2.107 for the year. Total of 1.455 in tax-based income for the year. So with the bridge loan, it bumps it up to get from July to November. With the levy passing, this bridge note plus another bridge note on the following year should hopefully be the last 2 that we have to do. After that, we should be back in a green state, if you will, with our budget at that point. So, any questions on the resource page and the income? Okay, so moving on to the budget itself, a lot of the numbers do not change a lot. Obviously, our personnel section changes based off of contracts and et cetera. So payroll for district staff is 619, taxes 61.9. Our PERS contributions are 136. Our medical benefits are 129. Workers' comp is at 28, which was a significant increase again this year, as we had last year, a significant increase also. Overtime, 30,000, overtime tax, and then deferred comp is the contributions towards the 401ks and things like that. So personnel, you're looking at 1.01 million for the year. Equipment and maintenance, so,
Do you want questions on each section, or you want us to wait till you're done?
no, if you gotta go ahead. That way we don't have to remember.
Yeah, so on the personnel services, I have 2 questions. One, the budget amount for payroll taxes is less than this year's. So are we expecting some payroll taxes to drop?
Usually that's just a set percentage that I put in there.
Well, it must have been a different percent than we used last year, because it's lower
we-
than the
We
budget
use
amount.
10%, which is about pretty close to action.
Okay.
Depends on state unemployment, how it comes in.
Yeah, well, so in that, so third question in this section, but let me do the second one first, and that's the PERS amount.
Mhm.
So the PERS amount that's in there is less than we budgeted this year, and we're running, it's less than where we currently stand year-to-date as of the end of March, which is about 141,000.
Yeah, so every time we have personnel changes and they start back at the lower pay scale, the personnel costs drop down.
Okay?
So like when Joe left, for instance, he was top scale plus paramedic.
Okay,
So that was a significantly higher than the person who ended up filling his role. So those numbers are gonna change based off of personnel changes.
okay.
But it's basically, it's at 22% is what we factored off of the personnel costs. So if the personnel costs go up, then the PERS is gonna go up. If the personnel costs go down, then the PERS is gonna go down. It's a straight percentage factor.
There are two things there that don't show in that number is, fire marshal, grant for 35,000 every year. There are, payroll, in that is not included in that.
It's not
Let me
included in
put
our
it
base
this way,
budget.
yeah, currently, because
Okay.
we'll write resolutions for that.
Okay.
And, conflagration, because we have no idea.
Yeah.
And so that winds up increasing it. If we have a lot of conflagration and, and the wildland fires, then it goes up quite a bit. So you will see a difference.
Okay.
Keep in mind, a lot of these numbers are forecasted numbers off what we think is gonna happen in the year versus what we know is gonna happen in the year.
Yeah, I was just trying to reconcile where we are year-to-date currently with the numbers that are up there for next year.
Right. The medical benefits are the same too. Depending on who we have and who comes and goes, their family status, everything affects that number. So, a person that comes in with, spouse and children, that's almost, triple what just a single individual benefits are, to cover the whole family. So,
Yeah, that
it's
number will
all,
look out of line with where we are
Yeah.
year-to-date now and what we budgeted last year, so.
yeah.
Okay.
Moving down into operations and maintenance. So, maintenance repairs at 15, fuel, still staying up at 18. Fuel doesn't really seem to be, sometimes it goes down, then it goes right back up. And even depending on what day we fuel the truck has an effect on it. If we fuel the truck on Wednesdays, that seems to be when it's the lowest in the county, and then Saturday, if we fuel the truck, it's when it's the highest. So, if we could have the luxury of picking only one day to fuel trucks, that would be great, but the call volume does not give us that privilege, so. PPE, still down pretty low thanks to grants that we've gotten, although in the next few years, we're either gonna have to go out for more grants for PPE or start looking at how we're gonna start changing out some of our PPE so we don't get behind. Everything has an expiration date on it, and that's the unfortunate part about that stuff. It's so expensive, but it expires. Equipment, uniforms, all, not much different from before. Equipment testing is relatively close to the same. CERT is basically what they had in the account at the time. We're not increasing that line item in just yet, but we will hopefully in the future give a little bit more. Training, again, maintaining our training level in-house as best as we can for the time being. Accounting, that's Brett's costs. Audit went up to 12,000 with the new company that we had to go to. So we know that this year's and next year's will be right around the $12,000 range. Our legal costs, we've been able to keep those down in the last couple of years, with changes in certain positions. So that's really nice. So anything on materials and services, or maintenance so far? Any questions so far before I go too far? Okay, all right. Subscriptions, this is a plethora of things between administration and even, like the rope team, we contribute money to the rope team for their coverage every year. Bank fees, office supplies, the tax note, the interest on the tax note, and then, membership dues, and then our utilities for all three facilities. So you've got all of our phone, costs, all of our internet, cell phones, our MDTs, and then our normal power, water, and gas costs for the year for all the facilities.
Is that tax note payment the same as the bridge loan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. We closed the SLR lease out. We no longer use the SLR facility for storage or anything. After surplus and everything out, we didn't have a need for it anymore, so that's gone, so that saves some money. As long as everything with House Bill 3870 continues on its current track, we should no longer have any mortgage for the station. The station should be paid off. It's going up for its final vote, I think, within the next 2 weeks. I think they have to have everything voted on by June or sometime in the immediate portion of June. So that, we're counting on that quite a bit. Building maintenance will change because if we do get House Bill 3870's benefits, we'll see about roughly just under 300,000 that'll come in for building improvements. So we'll have to do an amendment to put that money into that line item so that we can then do the work during the summer when the weather allows us to do some work. Our WVCC fee dropped significantly because they found an error on their side with billing. They've been overbilling us for the last few years. So they asked us, do we want the money up front, or do we want them to just credit us for however many credits it takes to pay back all the money? We said just credit us so we don't have to pay it. So the 5,000's in there, but we shouldn't be paying anything through this whole year. We should have enough in there to cover the whole year. So, and then the county radio agreement is our portion of the county tower system for all the different towers throughout the county to make sure that those stay maintained. Every district contributes a certain amount, and then it goes towards that project. Public education is just money for us to fund, like when we do open houses, if we need to, buy some hot dogs or provide brochures to the public or coloring books for the kids, anything that we feel is needed for public outreach. That's for that. And then the fun one is always our insurances. Those ones are always fun for me to have to deal with every year. So our insurance policy, which covers our vehicles and our buildings, our accidental health and dismemberment policy, and then our 24-hour accidental death. So all three of those together is that with workman's comp is basically all of our SDAL and SDIS insurance systems. So that brings material services down to 606,557. So when you take the estimated end of year amount left in all accounts, the projected funding coming in from taxes and the bridge loan, you end up with the 2.107. The total cost for operations for the year is 1.673. That leaves us with a balance of 453 unappropriated. When you drop down and you take out the payment for the engine, a little bit of contingencies, there's not a lot left there. You have 34. The funding that we need to carry over for next year is 475. So based off of that, we would have to have at least 75,000 in the bridge note next year to carry over. We'll probably go a little higher, probably in the 120 range, just to make sure. But it also depends on what happens throughout the year. If everything goes to plan, or if we have a major breakdown on a fire truck, that can be quite costly. That's going to change the numbers from what we forecasted them to be to where they actually end up being. So, everybody still with me so far? Any questions? And that's where you can see where the bridge loan is going to start to decrease thanks to the passing of the levy. Instead of it being a $400,000 bridge note, it's down to a $75,000 bridge note. And then the next year, if we even need it, it'll be even less. So, okay, so that is the optimistic.
Can I just go back to the PERS item again?
Sure.
Because the fact that we budgeted just under 131 for this year, and we're at 141, and we have 3 more months to go.
Mhm.
So you're gonna be way over budget on that item. And even with the conflagrations and and the other items, it can't account for that much of an overage on the budget.
Sure.
So
There-
I'm
there's
very
a-
concerned that we're still under budgeting.
There's a
Of course, I know
s-
we don't know the rate yet.
Yes.
We never do when we budget.
There was a significant increase due to conflagrations. We deployed to 5 fires this year.
Okay.
That were, all of them were over a week, if not the full 2-week deployments. That's all overtime after the first 48 hours.
Okay.
So when you're looking at what it cost for the PERS increase, you're doing 22% on 100+ hours of overtime per fire, if not more.
Okay.
That's where it really skews it, because we don't know if we're gonna go to 1 fire or 10 fires. And then we had the Palisades fire, which was out of rotation for us, and we were down there for the full 2 weeks also. So it's, yeah, that's why you're seeing such an increase that we don't expect.
It also causes overtime on the general fund side of the operation, the normal
Right,
side.
yeah,
And so you're paying PERS at time and a half,
right.
too, so it really.
The good thing is when we get the checks in, when they finally do come in, and California has up to 9 months to get the checks to us, when they do come in, we do get reimbursed for that. So even though it will show over budget because of what we projected versus what we actually paid, what we actually spent will be reimbursed in the overage for most of that. So,
I'll let it go,
And there will be resolutions written in June
yeah.
Yeah.
and July to kind of firm up the budget for the year.
yeah, that is a
Dot our
pretty
i's.
constant thing with organizations that can not always forecast their overtime. It's really difficult to do that, so. All right, let's see here. Any other questions before we switch to the other half of the presentation? Okay,
Have them all open down below, Chief.
yeah, I just need to make sure that this one's the right one. This one is,
If you hover over it, it shows
Not
you
right.
which one it is.
yeah, just gotta double check, make sure I'm on the right page. 64. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay, this is the right one. All right. So this is the other half of the sword. If the levy is not successful. So there will be changes to this organization that are obviously going to have significant financial changes as well, if and when the levy does not pass. These changes unfortunately will occur within days of finding out that the levy didn't pass, in order to make sure that the district has enough funding to make it to the end of the year. So, having said that, when you look at the resource page, kind of starting from the top, going to the bottom again, so our permanent rate brings in the 392, no change there. Our operations levy stays at $1.27 due to not passing. So that drops that number down to 607, and then the operations levy at 35 cents stays the same. The remaining fund stays the same, levy taxes stays the same. The tax note drops down to 250, because with the changes coming, we won't have to have as much for personnel costs. Sale of surplus stays the same, everything stays the same all the way down. So you've got a 1.619 instead of a 2-point change. And then the 1.168 for taxes, that's reflective of not having the additional 60 cents in the operations levy. Everybody good so far? So really the major change is the $1.27 instead of $1.87. Okay. All right, getting into the operating budget, the only area that changes is personnel. So the personnel costs, after losing 4 positions, will drop it down to a 364, 178, which changes the taxes down based off the 10% factor. Same thing with PERS based off the 22% factor. Medical dental is going to drop due to not having as many people in the benefits system. Workers' comp drops a little, not much, because those are still covering not only paid staff but also volunteers as well. Overtime will drop because you'll have half as less on the personnel, and so everything gets affected in some sort of fashion, because you have less personnel costs, so everything below it is gonna drop down in personnel costs as well. Does that make sense? Okay, all right.
So just one question, so unemployment compensation for people who are laid off, how's that accounted for in this budget?
It's under payroll it's in the payroll taxes, it's included in there.
Or is it
State
used-
unemployment,
Yeah, no, so you use the same 10% number.
yeah.
When you lay people off, there's an increase in what you're gonna be paying in unemployment.
Down the road, it doesn't occur,
It doesn't
It-
affect this budget coming up?
no, it'll be the next year. It loses,
It
it
lags.
skips a year, is how it works.
Okay,
I'm
It
not-
has to catch up to you as employees, so I understand.
We have to be able to show the state what we would have paid after the year of changes before they can actually accrue it on us.
Yeah, you won't know how much over, or under, how much has been spent until you get through the year.
so in the
So they-
26-27 budget, we're gonna have that hit on the budget.
Yes.
And if
Yeah,
the
we
firefighter's gone
would,
from there,
yes.
gets hired somewhere else, then the claim is filed
Right,
against
yeah,
your.
yeah.
No, but then we
I
still lose
understand.
our personnel, and the bottom line is, I hope that it passes.
Yes.
Plus, from what I've read, unemployment initially only carries on for 6 months. It's not the full year, unless you can, get it passed for further extensions, so.
Yeah, the employer pays 7.65% for social security and Medicare.
Right.
And then, the, state unemployment runs, it depends, it'll go from .9 up to about 2.4,
Right.
usually somewhere in that range. We usually run about 2, so
Based on
7.65
your
and
last
2,
10
9.6.
quarters,
Yeah.
based on your last 10 quarters.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody that pays out, then it's 2.5 years later before you see the reduction starting to come back.
So that's gonna drop our total down to 598. All of the maintenance and operation stays the same because these are all outside of personnel costs. These are normal costs for operations. So whether we have 9 people or 4 people, the operations costs are still the same. We're still gonna spend the fuel, we're still gonna spend, the supplies. Honestly, our uniforms and our PPE line items are way smaller than they need to be, so whether we have 9 people or 4 people, we're still gonna end up spending that money, so. When you get down into the bottom section where all the totals are, that's where we're gonna jump to. So you've got the 118 rollover. The projected funding is now 1.5 because of the 127 instead of 187. And then your general fund, projected funding coming in is 1.5. Total projected income is 1.6. Cost for everything for the year is 1.04, which leaves us an unappropriated 570. When you go down and pay the engine payment, the contingencies, everything as before, and then the funding to carry over at the new personnel costs is 275 for the year. That leaves an unappropriated ending of 261 for the year total. So that would be immediately back in the green, but you're losing half of your services. So,
Would our insurance increase, would we lose? Do you think we'd end up taking a hit on our insurance?
we could, they could look at it from a safety standpoint, and they could say that we're at a higher risk factor, because we're running, less personnel. I mean, everything's gonna be impacted across the board by this decision, even in the community as well,
So you'd either pay for having your personnel and have a direct hand on your response, or you can hope that the insurance company sends you back money after a traffic accident's happened. Because we all know they take care of the civil service.
There's also gonna be, as we stated, trying to be transparent to the community, there will be changes in operations to ensure the safety of the responders. Sending a responder 18 miles upriver where there are limited radio communications for them to call out for help and limited capabilities for anybody to come in and back them up. are gonna have to be taken into consideration of whether or not we send a responder right out the door, or we sit and wait for personnel to show up, so that they have people to help them if they get into a bad situation. That's gonna have to be taken into consideration. When you drop down below the minimum staffing level that we've set, we already set a minimum staffing level that I believe is risky by having just 2 and not having 3 or 4 like most places do. So we're already running at risk. Now we're gonna drop even further into that risk category. So yeah, insurance could be affected, ISO can be affected, our operations are gonna be affected. You know, that's what we tried to relay, to be transparent to everybody as best as we could of why this vote is so important. So, yeah. So, since the majority of that stayed the same, are there any questions on the factors that changed, which are mostly around the fact that the levy doesn't pass?
So FTE, we're going from 9 to 5?
Yes.
And from what I know, having been in the insurance industry for years, the ISO rating will change if the levy doesn't pass.
We had to work pretty diligently to get our rating down to a 4. We had to make a lot of changes here that were not in place when I got here, specifically with our training program, to get down to where we are. I would be very, very upset to watch all the work we put into making that system to that grade go out the window because of something that we can't control.
And, you know, for me personally, I looked at the value of my house and what I pay for, you know, taxes and how much goes to the fire district, and what I pay for insurance on my homeowner's policy. And I did the numbers, and what my tax levy, whatever, will go up is about 1/4 of what my insurance will go up if the levy doesn't
Correct.
pass.
I came out of Bay Shore, I was paying $880 for a $275,000 value, and built a house over here at a $500,000 value, and my insurance dropped to $400. And that's different between Seal Rock and Central Coast.
Yep.
So I know the numbers very well.
Yeah, there are many factors that contribute to ISO, many factors. It is something that's taken me over a decade of my career to get proficient at. So when you look at district to district, it's so hard to delineate why one is doing what and the other that gets their score where it is, because there are just too many factors to try to crunch. So given that, I've kept information from going public because I felt that there was a group in the community that would go even harder had they found out this information. The reason why we're not going to review draft A is because I've already worked an agreement out with the board that I will be the first employee laid off if the levy fails. I refuse to watch my personnel get cut while I sit here and continue to be the chief. So draft A was a draft that incorporated if my pay was still in the budget. So we're not gonna go over it.
Well, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Holy shit, pardon my French.
If we had announced that months ago, that would have been used as another tactic by these people who seem to be relentlessly unstoppable with their ignorance. And they would have pushed even harder to try to sabotage this event. Now that we're 5 days away, I feel pretty comfortable releasing the information. I think most people have already voted, so, good luck with that. So,
I don't know whether to be happy or sad. We thank you in a way, but it sucks.
this is the cost that people need to be aware of.
Oh, we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
Mhm.
That the voters approve it.
So, are there any further questions before we move on to, and what I would recommend is the Budget Committee's verbiage for approving the budget would be to basically put a stipulation that if you want to say, if you want to relabel the successful levy vote as draft A, and the non-successful levy vote as draft B. So basically, the verbiage would be, we accept the budget upon successful levy passage of draft A, or upon unsuccessful levy passage, we accept the budget of draft B. That way it can be recorded in the minutes and delineated correctly, so that after the election, the board can then finalize the appropriate draft based off of your delineation of before and after. Does that make sense? Okay.
I guess we've been discussing the budget as the next agenda item. As we went along, is there any other discussion?
So I make a motion if you're ready for it.
Since there's no public comment,
Yeah,
okay,
so
all right.
everybody-
And we don't have anybody, there's no recommended changes. Okay, then I take the motion.
So I would recommend that the budget committee recommend to the board that they adopt draft A as discussed tonight in the event the levy passes, and draft B in the event the levy fails.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Is that right?
yes.
We can,
One of them wasn't in the draft.
We renamed it
relabeled it.
draft A.
Isn't there something we forget every year that we're supposed to pass off to the board now? Or did we just do that?
If you had recommendations or changes.
Okay.
Usually you only have recommendation of changes when there's money to be able to change, so. Just saying.
I'm trying to remember because I'm thinking, isn't there the recommendation that the rates be approved in the amounts for either? Is that at the budget committee level or not?
No, that's when you guys
That's when we do it.
adopt
Okay,
the
okay,
rates.
all right.
that's a
in
resolution.
Yeah,
June.
okay,
Joe did.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, then I think
I can adjourn.
you
budget.
can go ahead and adjourn the budget meeting.
We thank you for coming and listening to
Yes.
Yes.
things that we've heard a while back. We've known what you learned just now. And it's as painful today as it was the day I heard it.
If you just go back a couple.
Okay, well, I am going to call to order the regular Board of Directors meeting for Central Coast Fire and Rescue on Thursday, May 15th. It is now 4:43 PM, and this meeting is being streamed live on Central Coast YouTube channel, and if anyone has public comments or questions, they can comment on the live stream, and the questions will be relayed to the board members and answered at the end of the meeting. So we'll go ahead with the roll call. Greg Booth,
Here?
Rita Heckerman. Here. John McCullough.
Here.
Greg Dunn.
Here?
We previously did the Pledge of Allegiance at our Budget Committee meeting, so we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We have the regular session minutes of April 17th. I don't believe we had any special meetings this time. Has everyone had a chance to read them?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as
It's
presented.
been moved to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of April 17th. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Citizen participation. Okay, let's move on to reports.
I don't really have anything this month. We just kind of put everything kind of on hold, obviously. Let's see where we're at. There's projects in the works and there's things that have been funded. Well, oh yeah, other than the jet skis, the crew and I, in fact, the crew that's on right now, and I got the skis down there. They are plugged in. There's fuel down there for them. It's ready to go, so.
You guys are going someplace, Charlie?
Give me go.
Saying Moffitt's fall too.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, so the crew, we gotta obviously see them. There is a significant hump in it, and that's because of the weight of the boat versus the weight of the jet skis. I do have an email in the jet dock if there's a way that I can off a couple of them, because that's how that thing deflates, is there's basically 4 or 5 of them on the very end that they got holes pumped in. So I'm just asking them, how can I make it to where it will deflate a little further, so I haven't heard back, but hopefully.
The nice thing is those skis move on that dock like butter. I mean, we really misinterpreted how much
We
weight it was
almost
gonna
launched
take
it
to
on
move
the
the ski.
dock.
We almost launched it all the way to the front of the dock. Cause we were just so used to the boat and the weight of the boat, we figured it was gonna be really, it'd take a couple people to move it, and we barely touched it, and the thing just launched forward. So it's gonna be way easier to launch those skis off of that dock.
Okay, very cool. Added bonus that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
Cool.
Put a little jump ramp in front of it so you can go over the other side.
You just had
Okay,
it.
well, it looks like our union reps kind of had to leave.
And they got somebody to fill.
Don't really have anything volunteer-wise either, other
We've
than,
got several
we've
volunteers, and
got-
they're going through, you've probably seen some posts on the service that they got here recently. I don't remember them all off the head, but
well, a couple of them came to us from Toledo, so they had all their paperwork, but, Cody worked with them on getting kind of it navigated, because they never got submitted, because that kind of changed, and so we were able to get them submitted for them. And then we just completed a rope ops class that we're gonna work on getting submitted for everybody, and then they just, their swift water for the jet skis just started coming in on all that, so, yeah. And then we had some celebrations of years of service as well, too. So, and then, of course, bingo tomorrow. There will be cupcakes. And if I can, a lot of black balloons.
4.
I turned a half a century old.
On Monday, he turns 50.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
I'll bring the horn.
And on election day, we'll be on a plane. So we will be gone all next week.
So I'll either be really lit because I'm happy, or, and out of the area, or really lit because I'm coming back to lunch, so.
Yeah, right. Well, let's hope for the former.
Yeah.
We're hoping to celebrate.
Okay, finance report.
At the end of April, the district had on hand in cash $360,972. So spending's been cut back. Of that, unrestricted is 303,203, and the rest is in the building fund and a little bit for one of the grants that hasn't finished up yet. Levy funds, 1,111,187, so we're almost there for the year, so we will, I'm sure we'll surpass it by about $8,000 to $10,000 or so. So, yeah, spot on. Prior levy funds, still coming in, 21,335. Not really much more. Finish the year sale surplus property, I guess we're not gonna have any more, it sounds like, so 14,145, so at least put some money back in. About all I got.
We have a check for just under $67,000 that'll be coming. It probably won't be inside this budget year, but it's, I just finished the final paperwork for the Palisades fire. And so that's the check that's coming for reimbursing the personnel costs and then also the truck. The truck alone is bringing $32,000. That's why I put it in the spreadsheet, that's actually profit after all the reimbursements are done, is $32,000.
And we've got 4 brand new tires on the back end of it, and one of the sensors, ABS sensors, was replaced at no cost to us.
Right, when it went through the check.
Yay,
So,
yeah. very
Oh,
good.
and the mirror, but, yeah, the mirror got hit by a tree or something, and it broke, so they replaced it for us for free too, so.
Yeah.
Just gonna happen on their fire.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, do we have any old business?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't
gonna
finish
say-
the financial. Oh, you're right.
yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, no.
You just want to roll on?
I wanna roll right through. Okay, so,
So I
can
make a
I,
motion to accept the finance report and pay the bills.
okay.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the financial report and approve paying the bills. All those in favor? Aye.
Moving forward, Rita, you're trying to get on Chiefs
Motion
done early, I can hear you.
Trying to set a record.
Okay, so, old business, none. New business, none. Chief's report.
Not a lot of changes on the report. Grants, most of our grants are just waiting for finding out what's gonna happen. Of course, the last grant from Congresswoman Val Hoyle was, affected by the federal cuts, but she did reach out to us to do the 2026 grants, so I did submit for 2026 for about $4 million for the station.
Oh.
So that's, again, that's gonna be, we're starting that timeline all over again, so it's gonna be a long haul on that. Brick grant, of course, got canceled. FEMA, in my opinion, slowly being dismantled over time, so it won't be a lot of FEMA stuff here in the future. I could be wrong, but so far, my, forecasts have been spot on, so. There are 2 other grants that I'm looking at. One is the Roundhouse Foundation, which will give us about $5,000 to put towards the planning of the, mass sheltering site and incident command post up at the high school. That'll allow us to basically hire a contractor to do the plan for us so that we can take it off of our desks. Every time I try to work on it, I get sidetracked with something else. And then there's another grant that just popped up on my radar today, which is the cooperation between State Farm and the NVFC, National Volunteer Council. They are awarding 150 fire districts, volunteer fire districts, with $10,000 grant for equipment specifically. So we could try to get some of the rope rescue equipment to expand our training that we tried to go after a couple of years ago when we went to tribal and we didn't have matching. So this doesn't require matching, so it could get us some of that stuff. I'm also in the process of writing a Spire grant for a wildland firefighting UTV from them. So that'll give us capabilities of doing wildland firefighting with a beach accessible vehicle. If we have fires done on the beach like we did along the 101 a couple years ago. So I'm just trying to collect letters of support for that before I hit submit on that one. So budget, obviously we just did the budget presentation, so that's completed. The election, we'll know next Tuesday at about 8:05 p.m. And then the Yachats Corona Court Station agreement is all signed. I'm just waiting for the hard copy, the signed hard copy to come back for our copy of it. So but it's all up in place in the engines in the station and should maintain the ISO as well as the mutual aid and auto aid agreements for the region, so. Yes, he got the Three Rivers grant, so we did a $10,000 grant for Three Rivers to get a, testing station, calibration station for our hazardous materials monitors. So basically, instead of us having to go through and bump test them and buy the canisters and manually input the gas into them and everything, it's a calibration system that goes right on the shelf. You plug the monitor in, it does it all for you, it ensures it's done correctly every time, and then it spits it back out ready to go for the next, operational period, so.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anything else for the good of the order?
Couple of things. So tomorrow at 1:00, last week there was I am doing the presentation for the House bill that will potentially get us 1.35 million.
Oh.
So last week they did it for everybody that just showed up. And it was interesting to listen to what everybody in the state of Oregon is asking the state of Oregon for, money. A lot of referencing back to essentially, BRIC grants being wiped out, other federal monies being wiped out, and, so there's a heavy push, to get money from the state. They set up because it was so well attended, they set up a second meeting for tomorrow for all of us that were online. It was gonna be by invite only. I just got my email today saying that we were one of the ones that were invited to speak, so tomorrow, whenever they call for Central Coast, I will be doing the 2-minute pitch on why we need the money and what it's gonna go for, and then the cascading solution to the city being able to do some water flow, et cetera. The fact that we are on a bill helps us significantly in that. So this is just going through the motions and the steps and whatnot. The second thing, just to keep everybody up to speed, since I'm the one that gets the emails on the investigation, as things have been publicly shown on Facebook and whatever, I have been updating the complaint with the additional information. One of the interesting things that came out of it is that the document that they put into the pamphlet is submitted by Put Out the Fire PAC. What they registered and came out very publicly and said, oh, look, I did it all wrong and didn't know, blah, blah, blah. What they registered was Put Out the Fire PAC Walport. Mm-hmm. So they didn't register the same thing that they put into the pamphlet. And then there's a bunch of other details that I have provided. That investigation is still ongoing. It's been ongoing for over a month. And like I told Chief, as soon as I hear everything I do get, he's been passing it off to our attorney, and as soon as I hear back from the Secretary of State, I will be passing that on to everybody on the board.
The attorneys are just waiting on the outcome from the investigation as to where they proceed from there, so.
So other than that,
Keep up the good work.
just living the dream.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Is there anything else for good of the order? Call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
There wasn't nothing online, right?
No, there wasn't. I would have said something, I was watching it.
Yeah.